Hi, I'm Meg Gilbert, therapist with the Lost Program. Thank you for joining the Hopeful Hour. Today I'm going to be sharing a simple recipe. During this pandemic, cooking has been a great source of comfort. There have been days I felt completely overwhelmed with the uncertainty, and having an easy recipe to follow has kept me grounded and provides me something positive to focus on. When I'm able to make fun treats or a healthy meal for my family, it's a way to express my love and nurture them, and hopefully if it turns out delicious, it provides some joy for them as well. So with that, let's get started. Today we're making chocolate chip cookie bars, which have been a real hit during this difficult time. So you'll need 2 bowls for your dry ingredients and your wet mixture. And so in this bowl we have 2 cups of flour. We're gonna add half a teaspoon of kosher salt and a half a teaspoon of baking soda, and just whisk that together, pretty simple. And then next we have 4 tablespoons of melted butter, and we're gonna add our sugars. So we have a half a cup of regular sugar and a cup of brown sugar. And we're just gonna whisk this, very easy. So it should look like this. And then we will add 1 egg and 1 egg yolk. And we will add a teaspoon of vanilla extract. And we will whisk this in. Okay, so when your mixture comes together, we're gonna have to fold in the flour and the salt and the baking soda. So I try to do a little bit at a time so that it doesn't get too messy. Okay, so when your dough looks like this, pretty thick and combined, we're gonna add the best part, which is your chocolate chips. It calls for 2 cups. I think I add a little bit more. Who doesn't love chocolate? And you don't need to over mix it, just fold them in. Okay, so I think we're ready to put it in our pan. And I just use a 9x13 baking dish lined with foil so that you can just pop the cookies out. Okay, so once you have your cookies nice and flat, I like to add, just for fun, a little extra chocolate on top. Always makes me feel better. Okay, that should do it. So I'm just gonna pop this in the oven at 325 for 23 minutes, and then we'll come back. Okay, so it's been 23 minutes, and we're gonna take our cookies out. What do you think, Pickles? Wow, those look awesome. So we're gonna let them cool for a few minutes, and then we'll serve them up. So our cookie bars are set, and I've got my taste tester Mick here today. So we're gonna serve this up. These look great. And because it's summer and the end of the school year, we're gonna put extra deliciousness with this. And a little more chocolate.
Birds are here and birds are there. It seems that birds are everywhere. They're in the trees and on the grass. They fly so low they hit my glass. Sparrows are nesting, looking for straw. I can watch for hours, completely in awe. The orioles are here, feasting on jelly, totally happy with food in their belly. The hummers are humming a wonderful tune, attracting mates that they will find real soon. The blue jays call me to feed them their nuts, and I throw them out, no ifs, ands, or buts. All in all, it's a wonderful sight and a wonderful way to ease into night.
Hi. I wanted to bring some poetry to the Hopeful Hour. I found 3 beautiful poems, I think, and they all speak to the experience of someone who has been in difficulty and is stepping forward into something that is new, making them all hopeful. And I hope that you can take some of that just in listening to the words of the poets. This one is by Joanne Kiger. It was written sometime, I believe, in the 60s. It is not titled. It was in the open, in the clear gray morning. Babies' cries and a dog barks. Birds shrill from the top of the trees. I'm going to run away from all of this. I am going to enter into another dimension. Oh, my little head in hope. I am projected ahead. I will realize the continuum from the past. I will not be abusive. I am smitten in glory. I am full of hopeful rushing on into the high out, rocking waves. This poem is entitled Wild Geese, and the poet is Mary Oliver. She died about a year ago, and she was known in America as a beloved contemporary poet. You do not have to be good. You do not have to walk on your knees for 100 miles through the desert repenting. You only have to let the soft animal of your body love what it loves. Tell me about despair, yours, and I will tell you mine. Meanwhile, the world goes on. Meanwhile, the sun and the clear pebbles of the rain are moving across the landscapes, over the prairies and the deep trees, the mountains and the rivers. Meanwhile, the wild geese, high in the clean blue air, are heading home again. Whoever you are, no matter how lonely, the world offers itself to your imagination, calls to you like the wild geese, harsh and exciting, over and over announcing your place in the family of things. This poem is written by John O'Donoghue. He is an Irish poet, and there are Celtic references in this poem. It is a blessing, dedicated to his mother, and it's titled For Josie. On the day when the weight deadens on your shoulders and you stumble, may the clay dance to balance you. When your eyes freeze behind the gray window and the ghost of loss gets into you, may a flock of colors, indigo, red, green, and azure blue, come to awaken in you a meadow of delight. When the canvas frays in the currach of thought and a stain of ocean blackens beneath you, May there come across the waters a path of yellow moonlight to bring you safely home. May the nourishment of the earth be yours. May the clarity of light be yours. May the fluency of the ocean be yours. May the protection of the ancestors be yours. And so may a slow wind work these words of love around you, an invisible cloak to mind your life.
Hi, I'm Cheryl Joseph-Lukz, a therapist with the Lost Program. Today I'm bringing you Tales of Triumph. We invited our Lost family to tell us about the times along their grief journey where they experienced moments of gratitude, a sense of hopefulness, and solace. We encourage them to tell us what activities bring them a sense of peace, or even a little joy. We all know about the tears, and it's important that we also celebrate the many triumphs. Rita shares, I bought a flowering plant and put it on my table to honor my son for his April 1st birthday. The flowers are yellow and white, and it was called buttered popcorn, which reminded me of the times he and I watched movies together. I planted the flowers in a bigger pot outside, so when I see the beautiful white and yellow blossoms, I will remember how much love we shared. I have a special candle for my son that I light on special days. On other days, I light it and remember how blessed I was to have him in my life for 43 years. I try to think of the many ways he blessed my life, one for each year, to acknowledge the gifts he gave me. Thank you, Rita. Our next letter is more of a tale of triumph. Mary Lee writes, what continues to help me is number one, saying the rosary, particularly when I start to feel sad, depressed, or even fearful regarding the future. You do not need to be a Catholic to say this powerful prayer of the rosary. Instructions can be found online. Just Google the rosary. The second thing that has helped me to no end is getting two very entertaining cats about a week after my husband's death. These two are about 2 years old, and one is male and the other is female. I mention this because I have found that they bonded with each other very well, and at times are so funny to watch that I laugh out loud. Now, you have to admit that it's pretty amazing given all that we've been through. I really could not wish anything else as highly as these two items. I know they are disparate enough from each other as to seem a bit incongruous, but they work for me, so I am hoping that you give one or both of them a try. Thank you, Mary Lee. Our next story and struggle comes from Kristen. She writes, I believe Tales of Triumph is a misnomer unless triumph is counted in moments and, as mindfulness teaches us, appreciated in the moment. Since grief comes unbidden and can strike at any moment, I wonder the corollary. Can joy also? And how do we get to the place that just as grief can capsize a moment or a day, joy can steady or even enrich it instead? I am a planner. When the children were little, I could tell you on February 8th what was happening on August 8th. And while I have always intellectually understood that control is an illusion, our son Hunter's death 5 years ago confirmed in the most gruesome way that we cannot control life. I found no joy in acquiring that lesson. My steps forward are predicated on my temperament, so it seemed best to confess my perspective. With Hunter's death, a pall descended on our family. A boat built for 6 struggled with only 5 sailors, but in time, we have organically accommodated our phantom sailor. Or, at least, the English major in me sees poetry in the ways our children have adopted some of their brother's traits. In fits and starts, depending on the family member, with long walks, ultra marathons, new pets, lots of conversation, therapeutic and otherwise, hospitalizations and hard work, we have trimmed our sails to the wind and can again see the sun and not merely the clouds which surround it. Some steps were tentative, others more concrete, and still others failed, but each led us to this point where, to quote our youngest, the difference between 5 years ago and today is that we've acquired the headspace to move forward. For me, stealing moments of joy from the mouth of mourning are most often rooted in reflective joy, seeing genuine happiness in the faces of our immediate family. On a strictly personal level, I find that simple acts of kindness are as capable of stopping me in my tracks as grief was once, and sometimes still able to do. And with both, I am as likely to share a private communion with Hunter, to thank him for the clarity to see each moment for what it was, a flash of such beauty that I am forced to get out of my head and savor it. I still reside too much in my head, but I am grateful to these glimpses which pull me from the administrivia of life to reflect on its brilliance instead. And for a control freak, that is a momentary triumph. Thank you, Kristen. Our final account comes from Linda, who writes, my son and I shared a lot of similar interests. One of them was an appreciation of art. When I was young, I always doodled in my notebooks at school, and every year asked for a colored pencil set for my birthday. He loved to draw dragons as a kid and progressed into anime-type characters. When I cleaned out his condo after his death, I found a few sketchbooks and a set of graphite pencils. He worked as a computer scientist and had been using his lunch break to sit outside in the gardens and draw. I did not know this about him until after his death. Seeing his drawings was both heartbreaking and inspirational. I brought his sketchbook and pencils home and began to draw again myself. In the 7 years since his death, I have filled many sketchbooks in his memory. Holding the pencils in my hands makes me feel connected to him. I can actually feel his presence when I draw. It is like spending time with him again, and it has become a most comforting practice for me. Peace, love, joy to you all. Thank you, Linda, and thank you all for sharing your tales of triumph with us. They help us to be hopeful and keep going.
This piece is called The Hack. I don't often use some of the hacks that you see on Facebook, but I learned recently that the little arrow near the gas icon on the dashboard in the car indicates at which side of the car your gas tank is located. I never paid attention because I knew where mine was, but then I started to think it might be wise to use other hacks that I would never have thought of. So I see this hack that states that Vicks Vapor Rub is good for decreasing face wrinkles. And I thought, wow, I have a lot of wrinkles, so I decided to try it. Now, it was easy spreading the Vicks on my face, but even though I washed my hands thoroughly, it has a way of finding a little crack or crevice on your fingers, so that when you retouch your face, it manages to get into your eyes. And that causes a little smarting, and if you try to rub it off, then there's a very large problem. Now, the eyes know how to rid themselves of such irritants, so they water, and water, and water. By the time now, the vapor is also cleansing my nasal passage, and soon I have rivers of tears as well as snot running down my face. I have to say that my breathing was easier, but I was in trouble. Of course, the rub got on my pillow and then on my hair, and so I was a mess. Ladies, I want to warn you, do not scratch anyplace else because it will burn. Take my word for it. On a much brighter side, the next morning my lungs were clear, my nose was unstuffed, and my wrinkles were gone. As far as the wrinkles go, I really don't know if they were gone or if I just couldn't see.